So I know when I'm doing phase one, I talk a lot about attachment styles, but I think it would be really good for people to understand, what do we mean when we're talking about attachment styles?
Yeah.
And so when you think about the word attachment and attachment styles, what comes up for you? What do you think?
I mean, I think we all sort of start life in very different ways on the basis of what we could count on happening, what we couldn't count on happening, and how welcome and warmly attended to we were, how consistently our needs were met. And that varies sometimes within a day, within an hour, so we could have had fantastic parents and then something really awful like one of their parents died. And where we were used to being picked up the second we started crying, maybe that day we weren't. Maybe we were left to cry for a while because mom just couldn't deal. And that's okay, but maybe some part of us interpreted that as my needs aren't important, even though the majority of the time they were. So it's important just to recognize how we see the world relationally, so that we can then change that attachment style if it doesn't really fit our beliefs and our values.
I think going kind of off of what you said, I'm definitely, the attachment styles that we develop are very much defined throughout childhood and from our experiences. But it's really, I think now when we see our clients, it's really how they relate in relationships. How they respond to relationships. What do they feel in relationships? And a relationship can be to a spouse, or it can be to peers. So it's really how do they relate in relationships in general.
And authority figures,
Right.
and people at work, and the mailman, like all of it. It all impacts our worldview, even, and what we anticipate, whether people are going to come through for us or whether we're going to have to fend for ourselves all the time. So.
I think what's coming up for me right now as we talk about this is the idea of my attachment style is based on my perception of my parents.
Exactly.
And so it's not like I'm trying to throw my parents under the bus when I say, well, because of this, I'm this way. But the fact that, our parents did the best they could, but my perception of them might have been that my needs didn't get met as fast as I needed them to. And so for our clients, it's important to, point that out, that it's, it's your perception. It doesn't mean that your perception was skewed. It's just that all we can do is operate within our perception.
Yeah.
And so going back to something you said earlier, so you talked about how attachment styles can be changed.
Yes. That's so exciting. I love that.
Yeah, I think that's an exciting thing to entertain. But before we go there, maybe would one of us probably should list the 4 standard attachment styles?
Yeah.
And so anybody want to kick that off?
Yes.
Well, I definitely see that the secure attachment style is what we all want. And we so rarely see, certainly in our offices, we don't see that very often. But I think everybody agrees that that's what they want. They want to have, genuine, authentic relationships where they really, truly do expect the best and can generally give it. And don't perceive themselves as incapable, and don't perceive other people as incapable. And that they have a basic trust and belief that their needs are going to be met. And it's remarkably hard to achieve, as simple as it should be. But that's the goal. That's what we're aiming at. And it is achievable to create that for yourself as an adult, no matter what your past is. Sometimes it takes longer in certain situations than others, but it's good to know that your attachment style really is up to you. But you will need some partners along the way to help you recreate that. So why don't you tell us some more about the...
Well, I think when we talk about attachment styles, once again, going back to how we relate to people was often defined of how we experienced our parents' interaction with us. And so going off of the secure attachment style, that going deeper into that, it would be about where, I'm I would have good self-identity.
Yes.
I trust this much,
Yeah.
and then mistrust this much in relationships, rather than I mistrust this much and only trust this much. And in relationships, I am not very overly suspicious. I have more positive beliefs about the relationship and emotions. So that to me is a little bit more definition of what it would be like to have to attach in securely in relationships. Another one that we talk about is avoidant anxious, and that is, where the child may growing up, the child may have had parents who were distant, who were unpredictable in their nurturance. So the child didn't know if they were secure in this relationship or not. So it creates anxiety in them, and so they become avoidant in relationships because they don't want to put trust in it because it's too scary. And so that's another form of attachment style that we see in relationships, which is really a lot of couples we see that are struggling in that type of relationship, right? Where one spouse is avoidant and has anxiety, the other spouse doesn't understand that, is confused about that, wants to attach. So that's another attachment style.
And what's really sad is that spouse who doesn't understand is very likely to kind of chase and reach out for more intimacy, and that is perceived as a threat by the anxious avoidant. So it sets up this dance that's not fun for anybody, and can be very painful. So it's great to understand. I love the Yurkovich's book, How We Love, which is a really great, accessible book on attachment.
Right, and the thing to understand about the avoidant, because especially in our work with addiction, is that 60 to 65% of the addicts we work with are going to have the avoidant attachment. And so for us to help them understand that a big piece of why they attach to their addiction is because people feel so scary to them, because they perceive that people aren't going to be able to meet their needs. And so therefore they become very independent, very self-sufficient, and when they get anxious, they respond to that by avoiding, whether it's at work. Oh no, my boss seems mad at me. I need to go, I need to exit the building. Or my partner is making demands on me, emotional demands or whatever. Avoiding is going to be the
knee-jerk
response, right? And so to help both people in the coupleship to understand that dynamic is really, really important. And so from the classic perspective, I think that's the avoidant dismissive. And then I think it's the avoidant anxious that's more the pleasing type. And of course,
that's right.
These two are inevitably going to be attracted to each other.
Why does that happen?
You know how they always say the opposites attract? And so for the avoidant anxious, when their anxiety comes up, then they want to attach.
They're attaching.
And so while the avoidant dismissive is backing up going, I need some space. The other one is going to be, no, connect. And so thus the dance begins.
And then we have the ambivalent or the vacillator who can't really make up their mind which strategy is going to work better, because for whatever reason they had inconsistency in their attachment relationship with their primary caregiver. So they'll go from avoiding to pressing in for more intimacy and back again, and I'm sure their partner's going, what is going on here? If they really pay attention, they're not going to be any clearer on what is needed and how they can love their spouse better. So it's a fascinating subject. It can sound quite complex, but my experience is it's totally workable. Like we can work with this. People can see a lot of progress, and they can choose where they land on that scale?
I think the desire for majority of people is to want to attach in a healthy way
Absolutely.
and to feel secure in relationships. So all these different styles. There's all these different styles that are defined, and everyone can be classified in a certain style. But the ultimate, I think, deep desire of people and goal, especially in the healing process and therapy, for a lot of clients, is that they want to have healthy relationships, and they want to feel secure. They want to, and so it very much is a possibility for to develop and grow and heal, to have these healthy attachments, so that people can have these very wonderful, meaningful relationships. I think most people, they want to be accepted and loved, right? So.
And it's only our core beliefs that no one would love me as I am if they really knew me,
Right.
which comes out of our attachment style too.
Which we may not
And
even
so-
be consciously aware of.
Right, right. And so, yeah, I love what you just said, the fact that we all do desire good attachment,
Absolutely.
secure attachment.
Yeah.
And the thing I love is that what we do at the Addiction Recovery Center is our staff are trained to recognize these attachment styles and to work with the couples so that they can heal each other in the relationship. The relationship can become a safe place for them to be. And so as they work on their recovery process, they can go from a transitional marriage, which is I'm ambivalent and don't know if I can deal, to everyone doing their own work, to the recovery at the end, and then they have a marriage when they come out the other side that is so much better than when they walked in our door.
And for the singles and even married individuals who seek therapy with us, they have this opportunity to have a safe relationship, professional relationship with therapists, in which a kind of an attachment relationship happens, where they can be treated with unconditional positive regard, and really learn how to build a healthy relationship in other places in their life.